outside? Should I run and hide? How do I take my company worldwide? Do you love the law? Did you watch Hee-Haw? What's the weirdest thing that you ever saw? What's it like in court? Favorite sport? Can you help with my book report? Is my hair too long? Am I right or wrong? And do you mind if I sing along to anything? Ask Alan anything in the world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Ask Alan, the podcast. I'm Alan Crone, the CEO of the Crone Law Firm. And we got a very special guest today. I'm very excited about this. It's Kevin Thompson, who is the new executive director of the Memphis Museum of Science and History System. And a lot of people think of the Pink Palace, but they forget about all of the other museums that are part of that system. It's not just one facility there on Central. So Kevin, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate you having me on this week.
Oh, I'm very happy to do it. And, as a native Memphian, I have fond memories of the Pink Palace and the Lichterman Nature Center and McGevney House and Victorian Village and all of I'm sure I'm leaving some things out about that. But as I often say, nostalgia is a powerful hallucinogenic. We look back on those things and much more fondly maybe than they deserve because of the part of our childhood. Now, I know, and this is all a big ramp up to what everybody is thinking, which is you guys have changed the name of the museum system. Let's talk about that. It's been a little controversial, although I think in most places it's been pretty well received. Tell me about that process and what are the names now, and are we by law prohibited from referring to the building on Central as the Pink Palace?
Not at all. And I think you're right. Nostalgia, I mean, it is a wonderful thing. And the reason people have that affinity to the Pink Palace or Lichterman is because of the experience they had there. And that's what we're trying to do, is re-engage the community in our facilities. We went through a strategic planning session with some consultants from Chicago. Really have to do a shout out to Mark Colombo at FedEx for putting us in touch with them and spearheading that project during his term as president of the board. And, what we identified was a host of things. And so essentially, I'm operating under the plan that we put together through them. I would call it a nice new strategic direction, but we felt the museum was kind of stagnant with the community, and we felt we really needed to re-engage. And the consultants showed us that. They actually lived in the neighborhoods. We had about 6 folks doing Airbnbs in different neighborhoods throughout the city. We did that rather than a charrette process because we felt a charrette process would give us just unlimited voice, and we wanted to know the communities. So we gained a lot of competitive intelligence through that. One of the biggest factors, and we all knew it coming in, was nobody really knew who we were. We had an identity crisis. We were these separate properties that were disassociated from one another. And then secondly, if you were an out-of-town guest, the names Lichterman, Pink Palace, Mallory Neely, they don't mean anything to you. They mean something as a local person who experienced a field trip or an event at one of these locations. And so right off the bat, we said, okay, we need what the experts call an umbrella brand to link everything together. And that's where we came up with Museum of Science and History. Wasn't our first choice. And it sounds very simple, but we did a lot of planning to come up with that. And the point being is we need to be direct in what we're about and communicate with that out-of-town visitor who we are. So the acronym MoSH is what we will be going by going forward, but that does not mean we have by any means dropped Lichterman or Pink Palace. It's MoSH Pink Palace, it's MoSH Lichterman, it's MoSH Memphis when we start advertising in out-of-town markets. MoSH is the thing that unites us all together, and it tells that out-of-town guest who we are. And certainly as a local, I use Pink Palace all the time when I'm talking to local groups. It's a locator. It tells you what facility to go to. But we're going to be pushing more MoSH out there more and more because it allows us to consolidate our advertising. It allows us to consolidate our programming, and it allows us to get in touch with that out-of-town guest and to let Memphians. I can't tell you how many lifelong Memphians don't know that MoSH is Pink Palace and Lichterman, not to mention McGebney and Mallory Neely houses as well. So this is a big change. Everything was done in-house during COVID. That's another important point. Our marketing team did a fantastic job, not only coming up with the name and the logo design, all of the marketing materials. And I'm happy to announce you're the first person to hear this. At some point today, we are going live with our new website. And so it'll be moshmemphis.com. The old website will point to it, and they're putting some finishing touches on it. So it might be midnight tonight, but we're going live today. We've been working on it for well over a year, so it's a new release today.
All right, well, we'll make sure that that we put that up periodically during this podcast so people can go see that. So if you by the time this comes out, moshmemphis.com should be up. Go check it out. That new website, I think more and more of us in business are experiencing what it's like to roll out a new website or a redeveloped website as opposed to creating a website. And
Yes.
there, I guess that's kind of the second generation of problems or challenges that you have. And tell me, let's talk a little bit, if you don't mind. Talk a little bit about that process. How did you go about as a museum system looking at your website and deciding that you needed something new, and what were the factors that you considered?
Yeah, it goes back to kind of the properties. If you look at our old website, it was organized by, I'll call it physical location, right? Whether it's the planetarium or the movie theater. And it just really was a listing of events and showtimes and static pages. When COVID hit, we learned the website was not a means to communicate with the public, but we weren't having guests come in. So we had to find a way to communicate with the public. So we, for the first time, started pushing content through the website. We launched activities. We launched Museum to Go, basically, which was activities you could do with your kids at home using household products. We launched Curator's Choice. We launched a more in-depth look at things like yellow fever, things like the Black Lives Movement, and really began to connect with the public through the website. We knew we needed a new website that didn't focus on the physical location, but focused on how to engage with us as MoSH. So the new website really starts with that question, hey, come explore things with us, and then let us guide you to where you need to go to find what you want to find. So it's redesigned. It's not organized by property. All the content's there. It's very intuitive. The focus groups we've had looking at various parts of it have given us all pretty good feedback on it. So I'm excited to launch it. We also have this great new, what we call learning resources section. And so if you're an educator or a teacher, you can go to that. You can select your grade level. You can select your subject topic. You can select the location, whether you want it to be a field trip or have us come to you. And it'll pull up the offerings we have once you put those filters on it. So we think that's going to be a useful tool with teachers and educators in our region. So we're excited about it, excited to launch it. Again, we work with Speak Creative here locally to redesign it. They've been a great group to work with. It's been at least a year-long project that we've been working on. And so to see kind of opening day is just, it's a joy. It's a joy. You know how that goes.
I do. And I think a lot of our audience, who are entrepreneurs, it's just an interesting subject because particularly, I think if you're a certain age, my age, you have one thought of what the function of a website is. And it really is, I always think of websites as kind of a marketing tool and that sort of thing. But I think in 2021, as you say, websites are the way we communicate and also the way we interact with people. And I'm just fascinated at how an attraction that's, you know, dependent on physical location to a certain extent,
Yeah.
you know, how you pivot in this age, because even without COVID, so much of what we're all doing is virtual.
Yep. And what I hope we'll do with it in the design is, so if we have an exhibit here, we'll use the website to further engage, call it the customer, if you will, in a business term coming in. So our guest can go to our website and learn more about whatever the exhibit is, or learn more about our region. They can purchase tickets through the website. It'll all work on your cell phone. That was a definite requirement from the start. You know, probably that's more important than the computer these days. And so it's designed to work smoothly with it. You know, we're moving into the electronic age as a history museum.
Well, very good, very good. Well, I appreciate you starting out with all of that, because I think it's on top of everybody's mind. At least folks that have heard about it. There's a lot of talk in the community about it, but I think it doesn't take you long to really kind of figure out that what y'all did was the right thing to do from a branding standpoint, because it's hard to be a national player with with a parochial moniker.
Yeah, it really is. And that's our biggest challenge, is how do we grow into being a regional presence? We certainly, with our mission and vision, are focusing more on Memphis and our surrounding region, which means we want to have a reach out to, the Atlanta, St. Louis, Dallas, New Orleans kind of circle, if you will. Anybody that would come and spend a weekend here, whether it's a drive or a quick flight. I would love for someone in Atlanta or St. Louis to say, yeah, I'm coming to Memphis to go see X at MoSH, whatever the event is or the exhibit. And so that's the direction we want to head. It's going to take us several years to get there. We got a lot of infrastructure that we have to put in place, and a lot of change we have to make that will take some time. But we're doing that now. I've hired 4 new senior leaders. Our whole front of the house operation, which is ticketing and membership, and the store, are now being run by Jeff King, who came to us from the Denver Art Museum. They were very sad to lose him, but we were very glad to gain him, and he's already hit the ground running. Our development department's going to be run by Jared Bullock, who comes over 10 years at Leadership Memphis, and has a lot of good local connections through that. Our head of community engagement, which used to be education, but we're changing our focus to engage both adults and kids. So we don't want to lose everything we're doing with schools. That's important. In fact, we want to grow it. But we have to, if you go out of town, you're more likely. I was in St. Louis a couple of weeks ago, went to the art museum, right? We all do things like that when we go places. And so you should be doing the same when you come to Memphis. And so she comes to us from Detroit, ran statewide outreach programming for the museum up there. And I'm excited to have Michelle Arquette Palermo, forgot to say her name. She'll be moving here mid-October and starting with us October 23rd. And then Raka Nandi is going to run our collections and exhibits department. And she starts October 11th. She'll come to us from started out here years ago, but then has most recently worked at the Civil Rights Museum in Stax. And so helped them acquire some nice collections. And I'm looking forward to the things she's going to do here as we grow as well. So we've got to have that regional focus. We've got to build that infrastructure, starting with the leadership and the direction, and then fill in from there. And, I liken it to, renovating an old house, which I've done many times. And right now, a lot of the work we're doing is when you rip the walls off and you're putting all that money in the things behind the walls you can't see. And so I'm ready to get beyond that into the real outreach. But I really feel like in the coming year, you're going to see a lot of big changes over here and a lot of growth in the museum. And the goal is to really connect, not just with Memphis and Memphians. That's certainly our core, but to really have folks and offer the things folks want to come to Memphis to see, so that we're a core part of one of the gems in Memphis and one of the assets for the city.
So how does a young man like yourself find himself as executive director of the Memphis Museum of Science and History? You haven't spent your life in museum work, have you?
No, I haven't. I'm a finance guy by background in trading and career. I was on the board and heavily involved in some of the new strategic direction. And, there was a group with us that really, felt we could reach a higher potential with the museum. And that's why we started that whole strategic process. And so, when you're involved at that level in it, and it comes time to make some changes and move forward, sometimes you say, okay, now put your money where your mouth is. And so that's how it came to be. But I'm excited about it. We've done a lot already in the year I've been here. Certainly, I started in January, COVID hit in March, and we had to close. So that's my claim to fame. New guy closes the place down. But it's been good. And even with COVID, we've used it to be opportunistic, because you just have to take your situation and run with it. And we've been very lucky. Mayor Strickland and Doug and Nick Walker over at Parks have been wonderful to work with. And really, we couldn't have made it through COVID without the support of the city. That was fantastic. And I can't tell you how many nights, I was up worried whether we'd make it or whether we'd hit payroll. And, there were at least 3 points where our funds really got to zero. We had good support from the community. And, it's, the finance background, I think, helped through all of that. Certainly, I'm familiar with budgets and managing through those and making hard decisions. So that helped us get through COVID. And I'm excited now, even though we're not out of COVID by any means, I'm very excited now that I'm returning my focus to the business and to growing the museum and to making it that asset for the citizens of Memphis. And that's the fun part of the job. It's a lot of hard work, but I call it the COVID triage. I'm out of COVID triage. I'm not, out of the hospital just yet. We still got a lot of hard work to do, and knock on wood, COVID will continue to decline, and we'll peak in this latest round soon. But getting back to the business is so much more fun than dealing with pandemics.
Can you think of a COVID innovation that you think will outlive the pandemic, that will be a game-changing innovation that the museum system has had?
Several. We wanted to pull all of our facilities together and do programming across them. So number one, we had to, and COVID had forced that immediately. Content through the website I talked about, that's another game changer for us. The website redesign and the content piece of that was not on the front burner. It was a couple of years out. So we just had no choice but to bring it to the front burner and go ahead and pull the trigger on it. The other thing I'll say, though, that I think is going to be probably a bigger change than any of us know just yet, is we are part of the Science Alliance of Tennessee, and that's the 6 science centers across the state. We have been meeting weekly during COVID, and then as things died down, last couple of months, we've been meeting every other week. We have, for the first time, done joint federal grants and received one of the more prestigious federal grants through the museum and library system. That was a first for us. It is to pilot a rural outreach test that we will all do. It was one of the governor's initiatives. We went to the governor to seek funding through him. And of course, COVID did not allow for that to happen, but we applied for 2 different federal grants, got declined on one and won the other. And we as a museum will receive about $127,000 over 3 years just for that program alone. So it's significant. And we're all meeting in Nashville in a couple of weeks to sit down. The concepts and the things we're talking about are management related. It's all the CEOs. And we're looking at better ways to do statewide programming, leveraging off of each other's strengths, looking at, things we do, benefits and things we offer employees, ticketing systems. I mean, just nuts and bolts. So we're all fairly new in the positions. The original group was actually started by the Pink Palace, Doug Noble, as a lobbying effort to get education funding through the state. So we've always been part of the governor's budget through that. And historically, the group's really just done that. But this year, we've really all changed. And we're all looking at it as, wow, let's grow the pie here. Let's reach more Tennessee kids and see how we can expand and how we can leverage each other. So I'm excited about that, as are my cohorts. And we're going to get together and do some brainstorming. And it's a great group of people, I'll tell you. And I'm not the newest in it now. So we got someone newer than me. So it's good. It's good.
So what's the board's vision for the future of MoSH?
You know, really it is to bring to fruition our goal of reconnecting with the community and really telling the story of the culture and history through the lens of the natural sciences of Memphis and our region. And so I think that will culminate with the redesign of our main exhibits. Steve Masler, who did all the Wonders exhibits design work, retired last year, and we retained him to do nothing but think through the design of our main exhibit hall. And his instructions have been, don't worry about money and don't worry about space. We'll get to those constraints later. But really, when we look at being a regional museum, and the reason we look at that region and the cities I named earlier just outside that region, at one point we were all underwater in what's called the Mississippi embayment. And we did a series on that a couple of months ago and then put it in our most recent magazine. And that geological, natural science event structured everything we do. That was the key to us becoming who we are as a city. It's all interrelated. It's all tied together. So, it left the sediments in the Delta, which created the city and the cotton trade, which, created the logistics center that we have today. Just all of that tends to tie together. And so we want to tell that story and how it's interrelated and anchor it with the science factors and the geographical location that we have as to why all those things make sense. And so I think that's how we know we're successful. Once we have that in place, and once we have folks saying, hey, yeah, let me go see what's happening at MoSH. This would be a place you come multiple times a year and really bring your friends and family to see what we have to offer.
What interesting, you talk about the geography and topography influencing history. There's a friend of mine that many people know, John Ryder, who's on the TVA board. He's a very prominent lawyer and politician here in Memphis. And he does a presentation called Tennessee Politics, It's All in the Dirt.
Yeah.
And basically starts in the Cretaceous period, about what you're talking about. And he overlays that flood that you're talking about with some other things, and then compares it with the secession vote of 1862.
Huh.
And all of the counties that voted to secede were in that area, that flood area, because that's where all the farmland was.
Right.
And there are a couple of anomalies because of some bedroom communities down in southern central Tennessee, but it's really very, very interesting that the cultural and political leanings of the area really were kind of set in motion in prehistoric times. And it's a fascinating talk that he did, and it's just that reminded me of it when you were talking about those that exhibit you worked on.
Yeah, I would love to see that, because it is so odd in a way, but you don't think about it. But that one event really changed and set who we are. And, Steve's talked to some working groups, historians, and they love the concept. And I think that's why people want to come to our museum at the end of the day. They want to learn about themselves, and they want to learn about where they live. And that's what we need to do more of. So in the interim, of course, we can't get there overnight. So it's going to take us 5-6 years of planning and design, and we're going to do it right. We're going to take our time. But in the interim, I hope to engage folks through what we have. And, we added docent tours to the museum. We've added little demo carts that we do on weekends. And as my new leadership comes on board, we're going to be offering new programming. And we're going to be doing things a little bit differently going forward and reaching out. So I'm excited about it. And I want it all done now, though. That's the problem. I gotta work on my patience.
I understand. Well, we talked about the past, we talked about the future. Let's talk about the present.
Yeah.
What's going on across your system right now?
Yeah, so we are kind of in between things right now. We just wrapped up biomechanics, which was a wonderful exhibit from the Field Museum. And we are getting ready for the Crafts Fair. So we've got, Cooper Young Fest coming up this weekend, and then Crafts Fair follows that next weekend. So 49th year of the Crafts Fair. We didn't have it last year, brought it back this year. We feel like there's plenty of space out there to spread out. They're spreading out the tents, and that our crowd levels are going to be fairly dispersed. So we feel pretty good about having it with COVID as it is, and certainly would encourage folks to come out and pre-purchase tickets online. That's the big thing this year. Everything's going through our new ticketing system, and so we want to make sure folks pre-purchase that. And just like you go to a baseball game, you just pull up the little QR code and walk right in. We'll just scan you and let you in. And then, of course, the beloved tradition of Enchanted Forest, working with Le Bonheur. We've already started working on it. Haven't quite gotten, I've got some meetings next week to kind of determine what we're going to do from a COVID standpoint. Last year, we made a lot of changes, and we liked a lot of the changes, and they liked a lot of the changes at Le Bonheur. And so we're going to keep some of those. Hopefully Santa will be able to visit us this year. He took a skip last year on the helicopter, but was here at the museum. And so hopefully we'll get the helicopter back and have a really nice kickoff to that.
How about Lichterman? I imagine this may be a transition season for a place like Lichterman. What's going on out there?
It is. Talk about a hidden gem in the city. We have what we call walk-in talks in the morning before we open. They're usually around 9 o'clock, I think. And they're small groups of, I think we limited it to 10 to 15. But it is a guided tour at Lichterman, and you get to see a lot of the wildlife early morning, before we open, and they kind of hide. So that's been pretty successful for us. We've been running that. We continue to run that. And then we've also done, I forget what we call the name and drawing a blank all of a sudden, but at night we have folks over and we do the s'mores and the campfires. And we've got another one of those coming up soon in November, I think, if I remember correctly. And that also reminds me, we brought back stargazing on the lawn. Everybody talks about how they used to put the telescopes on the front lawn at the Pink Palace. We brought that back. There's another event coming up mid-October with that. That'll be our third time to do it. And we've had a lot of success with that. We had, we started it with the conjunction. We had about over 150 people come, and it was cloudy. It wasn't raining, but it was thick clouds that night, and still had 150 folks come. We had over 300 come a couple months ago when we did it. We're partnering with the University of Memphis and some of their professors to do some talks in addition to the telescopes. And then October, we're going to do the same. And so, and again, the last time we had it was cloudy too. We haven't had a good telescope night, so we're crossing our fingers we're going to get one here soon. But it's just a great time to engage with the planetarium and, to have some fun with the family, or just dates and couples. We're seeing a lot of that right now.
What's showing at the IMAX?
IMAX, we have Sea Lions, great program. Cuba is still showing, and we hadn't had as high attendance at that as we expected, but I will tell you that is one of the better films we've had. It is gorgeous, and so strongly encourage folks to come out and take a look at it. Sea lions are always a hit. And then I think we may still have, we had a dinosaur movie showing. We may have rolled that one off. You got to have the dinosaur movie, right? And so we did bring back in the planetarium our laser light shows. And so those are running. Don't know the current schedule in front of me, but certainly check the website. It'll have those. I know we did Elton John last week. It may be Beyonce this week. And then I think we have a Prince show coming up. I may have those backwards. So check the website for dates, but it's a Good Friday night event. And we're excited to be bringing those back too.
That sounds great. I really encourage, I live near the Pink Palace, and those are, they're on a Saturday afternoon. Sometimes I'll just look up and see what's showing and head over there. And it's always interesting. And I really encourage everybody to do that. I think the planetarium shows, again, I think of people, maybe of every age, they think of that as, well, that's a field trip kind of activity, but the programs you guys have are really good. And it's what I think it's frequently overlooked as something to do in your free time. And so I'd encourage people to check that out.
It is. And the observations on the lawn just tell you how interested people are in things like space. And that's where we want to go with the planetarium, is to get a lot more in depth. We have programs that we show and we do the talks. We're looking at ways to grow those. We have a partnership with U of M that we've been working on. And we've even done some joint grant applications to do more and bring grad students in here and use the planetarium at times for it. But certainly the talks are so interesting. And so definitely encourage folks to come out.
All right. Well, Kevin, I appreciate your time. It's been fascinating conversation.
Well, Alan, thank you so much for having me on, and good to see you. And yes, come over anytime. Let me know when you're here and I'll pop in and I'll say hello.
I'll do it. Kevin certainly is the guardian and steward of one of the great treasures of Memphis. That's museum system. We didn't talk too much about McGevney House or the Mallory Neely House in Victorian Village, but all of those are just priceless treasures that Kevin is the steward of. And Kevin, we appreciate you taking that challenge, and you're so far so good. You're doing a good job.
Thank you. And I'm looking for, bringing some of the things we're working on right now to light and for the city. It's going to be great.
All right. Well, very good. That's all the time we have today, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, and my goodness, why wouldn't you have enjoyed it? Share us on social media, email this to people you think might enjoy it. Spread the word about Ask Alan. I would appreciate it. And I think whoever you spread the word to would appreciate it, because we've got great guests like Kevin Thompson from MoSH. So Kevin is going to go educate Memphis, and I'm going to go get some justice. So thank you all very much.